Since President Donald Trump's inauguration, and there is a war of words developing with the American press and TV networks. A man at the heart of the row is President Trump's press secretary, Sean Spicer, he's called. He's repeatedly accused the mainstream media of lying about how many people had turned out for Friday's inauguration, despite images which seemed to show otherwise. This gave rise to the phrase alternative facts, as one of his colleagues, Kellyanne Conway, defended him. It's a phrase we're probably going to be hearing a lot more of in the future. The White House Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus, went further, accusing parts of the American media of trying to delegitimize the presidency of Donald Trump. So, will the world of alternative facts harm his presidency, or will the traditional media be the losers as Mr. Trump continues his direct connection with his voters via Twitter and Facebook? Here's some of what's happened in a press conference last night and over the last few days.
Does the president believe that millions voted illegally in this election, and what evidence do you have of widespread voter fraud in this election, if that's the case?
The president does believe that. He has stated that before. I think he stated his concerns of voter fraud and people voting illegally during the campaign, and he continues to maintain that belief based on studies and evidence that people have presented to him.
But exactly what evidence? Speaker Ryan today said there's no evidence. The National Association of Secretaries of State say that they don't agree with the president's assessment. What evidence do you have?
As I said, I think the president has believed that for a while based on studies and information he has.
He again asserted that he would have won the popular vote if it weren't for 3 to 5 million illegal votes. Did you feel the need to correct him? And does it trouble you that he continues to hold a belief like this that isn't based in fact?
Look, I've already commented on that. I've seen no evidence to that effect, and I've made that very, very clear.
The President of the United States is claiming that 3 to 3.5 million people voted illegally. That shakes confidence in our democracy. He needs to disclose why he believes that. I don't believe that. It is the most inappropriate thing for the president to say without proof.
Photographs of the inaugural proceedings were intentionally framed in a way, in one particular tweet, to minimize the enormous support that had gathered on the National Mall. We know that 420,000 people used the D.C. Metro public transit yesterday, which actually compares to 317,000 that used it for President Obama's last inaugural. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving, Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts? Alternative facts, 4 of the 5 facts he uttered. The one thing he got right was Zeke Miller. 4 of the 5 facts he uttered were just not true. Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
Chuck, do you think it's a fact or not that millions of people have lost their plans, their health insurance, and their doctors under President Obama? Do you think it's a fact that everything we heard from these women yesterday happened on the watch of Barack Obama? He was president for 8 years. Donald Trump's been here for about 8 hours.
Is it your intention to always tell the truth from that podium, and will you pledge never to knowingly say something that is not factual?
It is. It's an honor to do this, and yes, I believe that we have to be honest with the American people. I think sometimes we can disagree with the facts.
Let's talk now to Thomas Friedman, New York Times columnist. He says President Trump's distortion of the truth makes him a, quote, reckless leader. In Texas is Brad Pascale. President Trump paid his company $94 million to run his digital campaign during the election. Journalist Steve Gruber runs a conservative talk show. He's in Michigan. He voted for Donald Trump and says Mr. Trump will easily win a second term if the press continue to attack him. And in New York, Jenna Friedman, who is a Democrat, stand-up comedian, and who's worked on The Daily Show and The Late Show. Right, Thomas Friedman, we heard Sean Spicer in our clip there saying the New York Times had got it wrong on the inauguration. How are you responding?
Well, the facts were the facts. We had the photos, we had the numbers, how many people turned out for Obama's first inauguration, how many turned out for this one. You can't say, I think the earth revolves around the sun and you think the sun revolves around the earth. Math is math. 2 plus 2 never adds up to 5. And this administration seems to have a certain proclivity for making up their own math. And eventually it's going to completely undermine them, Victoria, because, I've just written a new book, Thank You for Being Late, which is about the moment that we're in right now. We're in a moment of incredible acceleration, where small errors in navigation can have huge consequences. And one of the problems Trump is going to have is sometime in the next few months, I'll make up a case, North Korea, the CIA is going to tell the president, has developed a long-range missile that could hit Los Angeles. And the president may actually need to preempt a North Korean attack. He will do that, and maybe something bad will go wrong. Something will go wrong. And he'll have to come to the American people after and say, look, these were the facts. And people are going to say, the facts? Are those like the facts that 2 + 2 added up to 5 at the inauguration? So he's setting himself up to completely undermine his leadership.
Steve Gruber, you're shaking your head in disagreement.
Well, the math is the math. Thomas Friedman's right about that. Let's start with this math. 306 electoral votes to 232. And I can guarantee you this, Hillary Clinton's turnout for her inauguration was 0. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump was doing exactly what the people elected him to do, which is deal with TPP, the Keystone Pipeline, working on jobs and immigration. So the distraction over crowd size and illegal voting is all fine and well.
I mean, you might be right using that word distraction, but why is Sean Spicer disputing facts?
Well, I was there, and I can tell you that it looked like a million people to me. And does it really matter? Not really. What matters, honestly, is seriously, this is what matters. To people in Michigan, where I am, that voted for Donald Trump, and he won by 10,000 votes, Victoria. He'll carry Michigan again, and Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Yesterday, the union leaders of America came out and supported Donald Trump. Can you imagine? Union leaders like Richard Trumka, that had endorsed Hillary Clinton, are now on board the Donald Trump bandwagon. Let me tell you something. If the media, if Madonna, if Ashley Judd, if everybody across America, including Chuck Todd from NBC and others, continue to attack Donald Trump in this way, the silent majority that rose up in the middle of America, in the middle class, working families and homes, they will return Donald Trump to the White House again. So I say, put Michael Moore on tour.
Sure,
We'd like to see him every day and hear what he has to say, because it helps Donald Trump's cause every single day.
Jenna Friedman, how do you respond to Steve Gruber?
You're not answering the question. The question was that it was a lie. I think it's interesting with pundits how we just talk so quickly that you can kind of avoid Victoria's question.
I didn't avoid any questions. The concern over the number. First of all, the Park Service never gives a
It's fair enough, Steve. You chose to talk about the oil pipeline and the workers there, and absolutely, of course, that's a huge issue. And creating jobs.
That's what he was elected to do.
Absolutely, is massive. But we're talking about the facts that Sean Spicer has disputed at the weekend and suggested, with Kellyanne, that they're putting forward alternative facts, which we know are lies.
What is your question? What is your question?
Why are they doing that?
The crowd size was wrong, or you're saying that illegal aliens didn't vote? Of course,
why are they
aliens
doing
vote in
that?
this country.
That's the question.
I don't know what the numbers are. We should do an investigation of illegal voting in this country. That'd be a good place to start. And Donald Trump likes to win and run the table on everything he does, apparently.
Actually, which was a bigger deal than illegal voting.
There was
This
what
was the
voter
first
suppression?
election without
Talk
two
about
key
made-up
provisions
facts.
of the Voting
Talk about
Rights Act.
alternative facts. There are alternative facts. Voter suppression where? What state? Demonstrate something, because you
North
cannot.
Carolina.
There was no voter suppression. You have no proof of that. That is completely outrageous. Outrageous. You have no proof of that.
Brad, is the Trump administration making claims that are false?
I don't believe so. I mean, I was at inauguration. It was considerably full. So
Exactly.
I just think all this stuff is BS.
Yeah, well.
What about the photos back to back on the National Mall that showed?
Yeah, well, I think that if you look at my photo that I took, it was one of the very last photos that took. There are no blank spots. I think that photo was taken like an hour and a half before the end.
I swear when I woke up this morning.
I happen to agree with that. I was live at the inauguration myself.
The sun was revolving around the earth. I mean, that was just my impression. The sun honestly seemed to be revolving around the earth. I mean, that's just my impression. I even took a picture of it.
You know what the good news is? You know what the good news is? We don't have Article 50 in America, and we get to continue on with our president, Donald Trump, who was duly elected, with 57%
We're
of
not
the Electoral
disputing
College.
the
That's the
election.
key.
What people are disputing is not the election. What people are disputing is the fact that he is undermining. I respect that he's president. In fact, I'd actually like him to succeed. I would like him to succeed, okay? Just shut up for a second, okay? I would like him to see him to succeed because unfortunately we're all on the same boat with him. But he's not going to succeed if we get into a crisis where in fact the facts are on his side, but he has so repeatedly lied that we are going to not believe him when we actually need to. No one's disputing his election. That's not the issue here. The question is whether he's undermining his leadership. Of course I don't support him. What does that have to do with anything?
You just said you supported him in a crisis. And this is exactly it. This is very instructive here.
Let me bring in Brad, because Brad worked
this morning, and actually, my impression was, honestly, that the sun was revolving around the earth.
We got that point. Brad, you worked on brand Trump. In terms of spending so much time and energy focusing and tweeting about the inauguration and numbers, is that the right thing to do?
It's the right thing to do. I mean, look, I think that there's a lot going on. I think the press continues to try to push down and delegitimize who Donald Trump is in the election. I just think that it's important sometimes to make sure that you hold the press accountable. And I think those pictures and images that were put up were just completely false. The timestamps were different. You can't take it's apple and oranges.
He did lose the popular vote, you guys. I mean, it wasn't. He's not. There is still something to debate about the fact that it wasn't like a mandate. He doesn't have a mandate. Just saying. Yeah. As we continue to talk about size, if size matters.
The largest super PAC in America is for the liberal Democrats is the media. And if I had had enough money to compete against all of them as well, we would have probably won the popular vote.
I mean, let's be honest. Donald Trump has been successful for 18 months taking shots at the media. It worked for him. In America, the institutions that are least trusted are Congress, and the media comes in behind Congress. They're not respected. They're not trusted. Walter Cronkite isn't here anymore.
Well, let me have a final word from Thomas Friedman, then, New York Times columnist. How are you going to play this through Donald Trump's presidency?
All we can do, Victoria, is what we do, and try to report the news accurately without fear or favor. You do it day in and day out, and when we do make mistakes, which we will, you correct them. That's all you can ask of the press, but it's also all you can ask of a president. Because if people get the feeling over time that this is a man who just makes stuff up, we're going to reach a crisis point where that's really going to matter, because we're going to need to do something big and hard, and he's going to need the American people to believe him.
Okay.
And we don't.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you for your time. Steve Gruber, who hosts a conservative talk show in Michigan. He voted for Donald Trump. Brad Pascale was working for President Trump on the presidential campaign, I should say, on the Trump presidential campaign, running the digital side of things. Jenna Friedman, writer, comedian, who voted Democrat. And Thomas Friedman, the final voice you heard there, New York Times columnist.